What is Royal Road? Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different definitions, a whole bunch of different explanations I can give you. I'm just going to throw it all out there. One, Royal Road is a website and a mobile phone app for readers. Two, Royal Road is a platform specifically for sci-fi fantasy indie authors that are looking to gain an edge or a new audience through online serialization. Three, it's a place for readers of manga and Japanese light novels to find more of a Western authorship, authors that are writing in the tradition of East meets West, I guess you could say, where it's a story structure and style where it's ongoing, kind of almost soap opera level of storytelling, chapter by chapter, where the audience interacts with the author and with each other, and it's kind of almost a collaborative, fun participation social event, rather than picking a book up out of a library or bookstore. Four, it's a place for readers who do not have access to free fiction very easily to get free fiction. If you don't have a library in your local city or country, or if your library runs out of stock of the kind of books you like to read very often, Royal Road is a great place to land. I would say Royal Road is also an incubator for sci-fi fantasy authors that are doing new things with the genre and with the future of the whole industry. It's a fun place to be, especially if you are an author. It's probably also a tech startup, and it is one of many in the serial fiction landscape. Royal Road definitely has proven that it has staying power. I first heard about the site from a friend, I think in 2014 or 15, and at the time, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm aiming for Big Five traditional publishing. Since then, I have changed my mind, and I'm not the only one. I definitely see other, even big-name, traditionally published or indie-published authors. Both sides of the industry have come into the incubator, crazy playing field of Royal Road to see what they can shake loose and see what kind of an audience they can gain. It probably gained some special notoriety post-COVID since the success of Dungeon Crawler Carl, which kind of broke out into mainstream bookstores and so forth, and it put the Royal Road site on the radar of probably the more general writing and reading public. Now, I can jokingly say that I was on Royal Road before it was cool, but that's not really true. I mean, I began serializing my Torth series on Royal Road in 2022, December 2022, but the site was already going very strong at that point. I believe it probably began to gain a lot of notoriety even in 2015, 2016. So I can't say I'm one of the early adapters. I was watching the site for a good many years before I started to launch my own series on there. At that time, I was using Wattpad, which is another big web serial app. I kept my eye on Royal Road, though, because I felt that was probably more my audience. And so I was kind of watching it from afar, I would say starting in 2017, 2018, and so forth, and I just kept watching it. I would say the culture between authors on the site is really interesting. There is a lot of talent there. There's a lot of friendly camaraderie, and yet it is also cutthroat competition. But I would say in a friendly, kind way. It's not quite as cutthroat as I've seen in some of the other author spaces. There is also a kind of interesting mix of extreme amateur authors and veteran indie authors who are earning a full-time living as authors, which is very hard to do. But they will kind of mentor people that are just starting out. So you will see teenagers or people who have English as a second language testing the waters on Royal Road. And, it is definitely a competitive landscape, and it can be pretty intimidating for them. Many of the people that don't know what they're getting into tend to abandon their project. They'll post 5 chapters or 10 chapters, and it'll get no traction, no notice, and then the writer will get discouraged and back off. And that is probably the vast majority of stories on the site. And for that reason, the vast majority of readers on Royal Road tend to not even give a chance to something that only has 10 chapters. Like, they will wait until it has 60 chapters or 100 or 200. There are people that will wait that long before they will give a chance to something. And the amount of followers and views the work has does impact, I think, some readers. So, and the rating, of course. So much like Goodreads and Amazon, the ratings skew high because most readers want to be kind and give a good rating. However, there are always kind of people, bitter amateur authors, sour grapes or whatever, that will go drive by and give a 0.5 star rating to something they haven't even read. And in those cases, the author on Royal Road might want to open up a support ticket and try to get that removed if they can kind of prove that it was a false drive-by rating. So anyway, all of that is to say that a rating of 4 stars to 5 stars is kind of the average norm that I think most readers look for on the site. Anything below that, it kind of indicates that the work might be a little half-baked or full of typos or that sort of thing. But the beauty of the readership in the site is that there's always a second chance. An author can go on with a pen name and reinvent themselves. They can do a relaunch or a rewrite. And very often readers are much, much, much more willing to take a chance on strangeness and unknowns that you will see on pretty much any other site in the world or retailer. Like, since it's all free, all these readers are doing is donating their time, which of course is still a big deal. But the beauty of the site is that it is a well-known place for readers who are voracious, who just can't get enough of free fiction. And it's kind of where they all go. They congregate there. There are other sites. There's Scribble Hub, Reddit has a subreddit called HFY, and a few other sites that are places for readers that just love to take chances and read new fiction. But because Royal Road acts as a congregation place for these sorts of readers and kind of like an incubator, it's also a place that attracts some of the most innovative and cutting-edge writers out there, I think. Specifically, it's attracting writers that are very interested in studying the audience, studying the industry. When I talk to other serious Royal Road authors, it's so refreshing because these are people that are as well-read as I am, and they really know the industry. They know exactly what's been done in recent years. They have studied the publishers, the way the audiences react, and I do not see that anywhere else. You know, I've hung out in lots of writer discords and Slack groups and so forth. There are many groups for writers that are congregating in indie publishing and traditional publishing, and I'm in all of those groups. And I find that many of those authors have been out of the industry for a long time. They are not studying it the way I am. They're not reading as much as I am. And sometimes I get a little frustrated with that. So I do find it refreshing to be hanging out in the Royal Road space where 9 times out of 10, the author I'm talking to does actually know what they're talking about and has been doing this for as long as I have, or maybe not for as long as I have, but they're taking it as seriously as I am. And it matters to them, and they love it the way I do. They love reading the way I do, and that is so refreshing. It's such a great place to be. So some authors have made a study of, why is it that some take off while others languish? And there are millions of ways to answer that question. Of course, I think successful authors tend to have confirmation bias where, if it worked for me, it should work for everyone. But then the magic formula does not always work for everyone. One of the main ways to get noticed on Royal Road is there's a front page sort of the app. Latest updates get listed on the front page, which is like the latest chapters posted by anyone. Because there's so many authors, the latest update gets kicked off that front page within a few minutes, usually 5 or 6 minutes. When I first started in 2022, it was every 19 minutes. So unless you are just posting chapters constantly, you're not going to be all that visible on that section of the front page for very long. You get like a few minutes every time you post a chapter, which, hey, if your novel is 60 chapters, you get 60 chances for a few minutes each. The other way is the Rising Stars list, which is also on that front page right next to the latest updates. Rising Stars, they use a algorithm that measures momentum, and that's like how many views and followers you get in a certain amount of time. Every author has a chance at that list when you launch. Now, there are all kinds of guides. I'm not going to go into that in this video. They're easy to find on the site. There are guides to how the algorithm works, how many words is necessary for you to have an entry into that to be in the running for Rising Stars. But essentially, nobody knows the complete algorithm. All we know is that it seems to work pretty well. The Rising Stars list has 50 slots, and I think it's only the top 7 that are shown on the front page. So if you can make it to the top 7 of the Rising Stars list, you are likely to be solicited by indie publishers. You are likely to double or triple your follower count. These are big ticket rewards that many authors want, of course. And so many authors try very hard to rise up the ranks in Rising Stars. There are actually several Rising Stars lists by genre, but there's a main list, which is like collecting all the genres together. So even rising pretty high in one of the subgenres, like comedy or fantasy or something, that's still pretty good. That will get you a lot of followers. But yeah, top 7 of the main list is what everyone is hoping to get. My Torth series topped out on number 4 on the list, and that was in the year 2023. I think I'd been posting for about 1 to 2 months at the time, and I had been posting very frequently, so I was appearing very often on the latest updates. I also believe I had 1 ad running. Ads are another way you can get attention for your story, and almost everyone tries to do that. And then the third way is shout-out swaps, which is having other authors with a large audience mention your book in their latest chapter. So as their voracious readers are coming to read their chapter, they're treated to a giant advertisement for some other book the author is recommending. Now, most readers might just scroll right past that, and there are readers who disdain that advertisement, basically, but it's a nice thing to do. It's a way for authors to help boost each other, and it's free. I was very fortunate with my Torth series. I talked to other authors, and there were a few that were willing to shout out my new series, and me being a complete unknown with no audience at the time. And I would pay that forward as well. When my Torth series gained as much attention as it did, in the latest chapters, I would shout out authors that had far fewer followers and so forth, and I would mention their book. For me personally, I only shout out authors that I think are worth shouting out. That's different for everyone. It's not that I read every single one, because I was shouting someone out in every chapter for 500 chapters. That's a lot. However, I do look at their blurb, their cover art. I personally didn't shout out people that had typos or logical fallacies right in their blurb, or anything that was kind of a red flag to me. I wouldn't shout out that author. But, there's plenty worth mentioning, and many of them went on to take off as well. And that was quite a wild rush, and I'm actually gearing up to do it again, or at least make another attempt at Rising Stars with a new series that I'm writing. It's exhilarating, it's fun, it's almost like entering the Olympics of writing and trying to win a gold medal, except it's all unofficial. Now, one more elephant in the room is that Royal Road is known specifically for 2 subgenres, which is lit RPG and progression fantasy. So there are many people saying, well, if you don't write in those particular subgenres, in other words, you're writing off meta, which is something that the core audience of Royal Road is not accustomed to seeing, you're not going to get as much attention on the site. And then these people will lament the fact that there is no app that is catering to romance or high fantasy or whatever their particular thing is. They are correct. I think the circumstances that led to the rise of Royal Road were very specific, and it is what it is. However, the very fact that that audience is so adventurous and so voracious means that they are willing to try untested, weird stuff. Some of them are willing to venture outside of the boundaries of the specific genres they like. So it's become a very experimental, fun place. Even though I myself don't really focus too heavily on lit RPG, I do love progression fantasy because I think that that's a very big umbrella. I think it's a rebrand, honestly, of heroic fantasy. And I do enjoy reading it. And so it's a great place for me. And I think particularly in today's day and age, people are looking for escapism and power fantasies, and this is where you find them. But all that aside, of course, would I love for there to be another app out there that specifically does grim, dark fantasy or something? Yeah, that would be really cool. I think a lot of us would love to see that. I hope somebody makes something like that someday, but people have tried and failed multiple times. It could be that there's not enough audience. It could be that making that specific combination of attracting free readers over years and years and having algorithms that measure momentum in a specific way, that led to the success of this site. And I hope someone makes something like it for other genres. But for now, this is what we have, and it isn't bad. It's wonderful. So I'm probably going to have a few more videos talking about Royal Road and how I rose up the ranks and how I'm looking at handling the launch of my new series. I post about 1 video per week on my channel. Thanks for watching.